Hey everybody, Michael here, and I thought I would pop in because there seems to be a brand new PlayStation kernel exploit on the horizon, and the claimed firmware coverage is unusually recent, so up to a PlayStation 4 running firmware 13.04 and a PlayStation 5 all the way up to 12.70. So this bug has been named Celsius, and it could become a major development for the PlayStation Homebrew community. But first off, let's establish this immediately. Celsius is not a public jailbreak. There is no download, no finished tool, and no guarantee that it will come usable by the average person. Right now we have an early technical claim supported by several Discord screenshots, and in this video we're going to break down what is being claimed and what still has not been proven. So let's jump straight into it. So the technical claim here says that the bug was found by comparing different PlayStation 4 kernels. So according to a Discord message from Earth Onion, a developer named Bowlers discovered an integer overflow in FFS mount that reportedly causes a heap overflow. So because this reportedly happened in kernel code, its potential impact is much more interesting than an ordinary application crash, but the screenshot only identifies a possible vulnerability. So this is the first piece of evidence that was circulated. This message says the issue was discovered by a developer named Bowler while comparing PS4 kernels. It then says it might be exploitable, but who knows. The claimed upper limit is the PS5 firmware 12.70, while a second message adds PS4 firmware 13.04. Both are immediately qualified with the words "in theory." That wording obviously matters, as these numbers do not come from a polished compatibility chart. But for now, PS4 13.04 and PS5 12.70 should be treated as a upper bounds limit, not confirmed jailbreak support. So if you want to know why this bug really matters, the diagram shows the possible matches from the reported bug to something useful. So first we can see the integer overflow, which is a calculation produces a value the code handles incorrectly, and that may lead to a heap overflow where memory outside the intended buffer can be affected. And then the final stage here is turning that corruption into a controlled kernel execution. So again, a crash is not an exploit. Researchers must make the behavior repeatable, control the result, and work around the console's protection. That is why finding a promised vulnerability can still be far away from releasing a stable jailbreak. So the post also gives us the claim patch boundary. On PlayStation 4, it says the vulnerability was patched in firmware 13.50. On the PlayStation 5, the stated patch version is 13.00. So there is a gap between the highest firmware specifically described as affected and the first version described as patched. We should not fill that gap with assumptions. So we can also see over here that Dr. Yin says that it's difficult to work with and there's no guarantee that it will work out. Even if it does, there will be no guarantee it'll even be easy to use. And also asking people not to enter developer Discord servers, demanding release dates or ETA when. This is obviously worth respecting, as extra pressure will not make a difficult exploit arrive faster. Now, one of the most unusual details is the hardware requirement. So the message says Celsius needs a USB 3.0 drive of at least 250 gigabytes configured as extended storage. Now, this isn't going to work with some of those small flash drives that in the past simply carried a payload. It says that not all 250 gigabyte drives behave the same way, so a 320 or a 500 gigabyte drive may eventually be recommended, but the source includes an important warning: only buy a drive after the method has actually been announced as working. So this is good advice. A future implementation could change the requirements or support only certain drives or never become reliable enough for a public release. So Celsius would be the kernel part of a larger exploit chain. It still needs a user-len entry point to begin running code in a restricted environment. For the PlayStation 4, the screenshot names out view and BDJ as expected entry points, and for the PlayStation 5 it names Y2JB and BDJ. So think of these as possible front doors. The user-len starts the process while the kernel vulnerability attempts to escape the normal restrictions and gain deeper control. So both stages must support the target firmware and work together. A kernel vulnerability without a usable entry point or a user-len entry point without a kernel chain does not create a complete jailbreak. So the final screenshot here gives us another clue about why Celsius may be difficult to use. The message says the process does not take 50 minutes, but the USB drive must be connected at the correct time. Its success rate depends on hitting that timing window. So for users, that could mean repeating the process several times. For developers, it means making the trigger consistent across consoles, drives, and system conditions. Different storage hardware can initialize at different speeds, which may explain why the drive itself matters. For now though, this remains a claim in the screenshot and we do not have a public procedure or even enough testing to know how reliable the timing can become. So in the takeaway here, Celsius is promising because it reportedly targets a kernel memory corruption bug and reaches several recent PS4 and PS5 firmwares. But the public evidence is limited. There's no release code or anything of that matter. And so for now, just watch the channel here and avoid updating any of your consoles. And so the next stage for this is that we really do need some sort of public code or demonstrations on real hardware and really just more information from some of the other researchers here. Most importantly here, don't harass anybody or ask them about this, and do not panic buy a bunch of external drives. If Celsius does become practical, there will be time to confirm the requirements. Now I want to hear from you. What firmware are you currently running on your PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 5? And if Celsius eventually requires an external drive to be connected during a precise timing window, would you be willing to use it? Maybe those of you that started with the PlayStation 4 9.00 that got used to inserting and rejecting a USB drive. If you did it then, are you going to be doing it now? So let me know in the comments, but remember the firmware numbers shown here, they're just claimed limits. So let me know in the comments, and if more evidence, a proof of concept, or a public release appears, then obviously I'll be covering it over here on the channel. And so if this helped you understand what Celsius is and what it is not, leave a like, subscribe for more PlayStation Homebrew coverage, and I'll see you in the next one. Michael, out!